What's up, everybody? It's Nick Gill from GridironTalkZone. Today, I'm doing a video I'm super excited to make, my 2023 NFL Draft quarterback rankings. So, I'm a draft guy. I've been getting into the NFL Draft the last few years now, 3 or 4 years. I've been starting to scout prospects, look at the prospects. I try to watch 100 prospects and make my top 50 big board, along with positional rankings for the draft. And so far this year, I've only watched the quarterbacks. I watched 13 quarterbacks, and I have to say, this is a very deep, good quarterback class. Like, it's better than the past years as far as depth and like how deep it goes and how many guys I think can play. It's better by far than the past years. But those three guys I really like. There's another 1 to 2 I feel pretty good about. And then there's about five, the last five in the top 10, that I think can play, but I still have big questions about, but still pretty good players. Um, and really, my number six through my 10, maybe even to 11 range, you could all convince me that they're interchangeable because they are all pretty close. But I am going over the top 10. I'm going to talk about the three that I watched that just missed my top 10. But without further ado, let's get into my draft quarterback rankings for 2023. On to the three quarterbacks that I watched that did not make my top 10. I just labeled them the rest. Looking at Stetson Bennett, I have him as a late day 3 grade. I'd take a 7th round pick on him just because he is a winner. He does have a nice quick release. He's good at going through his reads. He does actually have a pretty good arm, and he showed to be a pretty clutch player at Georgia, obviously winning 2 national championships back-to-back years. But there is a lot to be concerned about. First off, he is going to be almost 26 as a rookie. In fact, he turns 26 during his rookie season, which he will likely be a backup quarterback. He is very tiny for a quarterback. He's 5'11", 190 pounds. And it shows up in his game. He doesn't really handle pressure well. He does get a lot of passes batted, although that's not like the craziest thing to go off of. But some other concerns, you see a lot of bad missed throws on his tape. Yes, Georgia was a very good team, and he was definitely part of their success. I don't think you could say he was the driving force of their success. Kirby Smart put together a pretty good program there, and Stetson Bennett, he was 24, 25-ish, playing versus like 20 and 21-year-olds. Of course he's going to have a big advantage. Just look at the age difference. He does try to force the ball into traffic a lot, which I don't like. And I just don't see the upside drafting Stetson Bennett. I take a chance on him in the 7th round to be a backup, to get him in your quarterback room, because he does have some solid traits, and he has that winning experience, and you just see a little bit of an X factor with him. But there's so much to be concerned about to where I wouldn't spend more than a 7th, maybe 6th round pick on Stetson Bennett. The next guy I have listed here, Malik Cunningham. I'd take him as a priority undrafted free agent. Didn't really like a ton in his game. I think he has a lot of concerns as far as throwing the football. He holds onto the ball way too long. Pretty bad accuracy concerns, in my opinion. He's not a good deep ball thrower. Doesn't really see the field well with his vision. And he doesn't seem to have a great feel for the pocket. And he is 24 years old. He's going to be about to be 25 as a rookie. I think he's a super fast special runner at the quarterback position. But there's just so much more to be desired as a thrower of the quarterback, or as a thrower of the football at the quarterback position. He is 6'1", 190, so very kind of small for the position too. He did suffer a shoulder injury in 2022, and he regressed statistically in 2022 compared to 2021. So just nothing that really would make me want to draft him, but with this special rushing talent, I'd take a chance on him as a priority undrafted free agent. Tanner McGee, a guy who seems to be getting some hype because he is 6'6", 230 pounds. He just didn't really show it on the field at Stanford. He was a high recruit in the class of 2018 coming out of high school. I believe he was the third-ranked quarterback out of high school behind Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields. But I just have him as an undrafted free agent grade. He's a big guy, but he didn't really show much at all to make me draft him. He threw 13 touchdown passes last year, 8 interceptions. Stats aren't the end-all be-all, but he didn't produce on the field. He has pretty good sideline accuracy, I'll give him that. But outside of that, the dude takes way too many sacks. Doesn't really have good anticipation at all. He runs into sacks. Just looks like he doesn't want to throw the ball sometimes. And just really throwing under pressure was a big, big weakness for him at Stanford. And he's not really elusive at all. I just kind of see him as a pocket statue. But I don't really see him producing from the pocket like you would want a pocket statue to produce either. So I don't see anything that would make me want to draft him. I get why people like his size, but I just don't like a lot of Tanner McGee's game, so I have him as an undrafted free agent. I could see him as a practice squad, maybe third string potential player, backup quarterback throughout his career if he can work his way to being a suitable backup. But I just don't see a lot in his game that I like. So that's the rest of the guys that I watched. Now let's get into the top 10. On to my number 10 quarterback. This one may be surprising to some people because there is a group of people out there who view Hendon Hooker as a first-round talent. Personally, I just don't see that at all. So as you see on this graphic I put together, Hendon Hooker, pretty good size actually, 6'4", 218 pounds. If you look at his numbers, PFF grade good, turnover worthy, play percentage low. His stats altogether look pretty good. But just watching the tape, I really see a good quarterback with just running the football. Running the ball and throwing deep. Maybe you can put him in a play action system and kind of gimmicky system and it could work out. But I see him as a good quarterback with the QB run option plays. I see him with a really nice arm and throwing the ball deep, accurately downfield. And he's good at taking care of the football. Those are some traits I like. But just as far as the traits I dislike in him, it's just so much from a football standpoint. Very flat-footed in the pocket, poor pocket awareness and presence overall. His feet are sloppy in the pocket. He looks to run early way too much. Poor anticipation to throw when a receiver is open. Just doesn't anticipate throws well, and it contributes to him being inaccurate, especially over the middle of the field, which is kind of where you want your quarterback to be spot on, because you don't want your quarterback to be overthrowing people in the middle of the field. Ball gets tipped or picked right over the head of the receiver to the linebacker or safety. And I just see just not a very good thrower of the football from the pocket. And he takes too many sacks. Took a lot of sacks. High pressure to sack rate, I believe. But I will say, I like the character. He's a mature man. He's a pretty solid processor. And he takes care of the football pretty well. So those are some things to like. But some concerns. He is 25 years old. Going to be 25 as a rookie. And he did tear his ACL in November 2022. So by the time he gets back healthy and ready to play, he might end up being like towards the end of his rookie season. Probably not going to be a starter anyway. So the first time we could see him take the NFL field, he's probably going to already be 26 years old. That is a big concern. He was a transfer in college, transferred from Virginia Tech to Tennessee, put together a pretty good season statistically, but just watching the tape, there's not enough for me to like. I don't see the passing ability. I really don't see much that scares me with his accuracy at all. I think he's actually fairly inaccurate. And there's just not a lot to like as far as injury, age. I'd take him in round 3 to 4 though, just because he does have that deep ball and he does have the rushing ability. If he was 21 years old, this would be a different story. But he is 25 years old, and as I said, with the injury, probably going to be 26 by the time he takes the field. But round 3 to 4 comp, see flashes of Malik Willis, Marcus Mariota in his game. I think I think I'd even say Malik Willis last year was a better prospect than a Hendon Hooker. Um, but yeah, I'm just not a big Hendon Hooker fan. But we'll see if he can prove me wrong in the NFL. On to my number 9 quarterback in the 2023 NFL Draft. It's Max Duggan out of TCU. I actually have around 3 grade I have around 3 grade on Max Duggan. I'd say I'm a little bit higher on him than most of the draft community that I've been seeing. But let's talk about Max Duggan. So what stands out is just his toughness. Very tough player, kind of that grit and grind guy, strong runner. Um, I would say he looks to run the football a little more than I wish he did. I wish he kind of become a little bit more of a drop back passer. Um, but there is a lot to like in his passing game as well. Pretty accurate downfield. The deep ball stands out. Doesn't have the strongest arm, but his ability to throw it downfield, whether that's being hit under pressure, it's pretty impressive. Um, and as I just mentioned, he has a nice ability to throw while being hit and accurately while being hit. Um, Pretty good as far as the mind games, going through reads, his progressions, reading the defense. So just there's lots to like about Duggan. Um, but some things that I dislike is I feel like he tries to play hero ball too much, and it can often make him just look sloppy out there. A ball can come out of his hand sloppy from time to time. He has sloppy footwork from time to time in the pocket, and I see a lack of anticipation on his throws. He'll stare at a guy for a second or two before throwing it to him when he's open. So I just wish he would become a little bit more quicker at throwing with anticipation. But he put together pretty good stats. He took TCU to the national championship game, so there is a lot to like about him. He has solid size, 6'2", 210. I will say he plays like he's a little bit smaller than that, and that still isn't even the biggest size. But yeah, there's some things that I like about Duggan though. I have a round 3 grade on him. Pro comp, I actually see a little bit of a mixture of some of these guys who are like not good quarterbacks, but they can come in from time to time as a starter fill-in and play pretty good ball for a stretch of time and maybe lead the team to some wins, kind of have a cool style to them. Gardner Minshew, Taylor Heineke, and I could even see some Ryan Fitzpatrick potential out of Max Duggan to where he comes into the league and, maybe floats around team to team, but can find some starter jobs and put together solid strings of play heel to heel and just become a likable player throughout the NFL and have a pretty long, solid career. Um, so my NFL role is a high-end backup who can start and put together some good stretches of play, and he has starter potential, and I think he's going to be a guy who lasts in the NFL a long time. He is 23 years old, so there's a lot of older quarterbacks in this draft class, like even some 24 and 25-year-olds. So he's kind of not the oldest in this draft class, but 23 as a rookie is still somewhat on the older side. But yeah, some things to like about Max Duggan, but still not enough to make me be wowed after his game and think he should be like a starter day one in the NFL. But with that being said, I still have round 3 grade on Max Duggan. I like him a little bit more than I think others do. My number 8 quarterback in the 2023 NFL Draft is a guy you may not have heard of, but some of you, if you're really into the draft like me, you may know who he is. His name's Jake Hanel. He played quarterback at Fresno State this past year. He actually led them to the Mountain West Championship, and I believe he was also named the Senior Bowl MVP in Mobile, Alabama. So he's kind of a little bit of a riser recently in the draft community. But let's talk about some Jake Hanel. Jake Hanel, he's 6 foot tall, 207 pounds, kind of on the smaller side for the quarterback position. Definitely on the smaller side, actually. But he does have a pretty nice arm. Wouldn't say it's special or anything, but he puts good zip on his throws, good touch on his throws. Very good short to intermediate passer, very accurate, as you can see with the stats. 78.8 adjusted completion percentage, which is absurdly high. He processes defenses quickly, which I like. Very good accuracy, as I mentioned. He has impressive ability to hit big-time throws into tight windows, which has to do with his zip and his overall accuracy and ball placement being very good. He's a good thrower over the middle of the field, and he has pretty good pocket presence. So, as far as just a pocket quarterback, a lot to like in his game from the short to intermediate range. Um, but he is on the smaller side, as I mentioned. He's actually not much of a rushing threat. It's weird because you can see a little bit of elusiveness in his game. And, you would think with his size, he'd kind of be that guy who could run a lot. But he only had 55 rushing yards this past year. And just watching his tape, he doesn't look to run much, or to run much. He just tries to be a pocket passer, which he's pretty good at. So that's a good thing. But he doesn't push the ball downfield a lot. I wish he would push the ball downfield a lot, but him being on the smaller side, I wouldn't say his vision is very good looking downfield. And well, he does have pretty good arm and he puts good zip on his throws. Just doesn't translate to him making big plays downfield like you would like to see. Um, Another negative I noticed in his game is that he takes a lot of sacks, mainly due to him stepping into pressure. As I said, he doesn't run much. He doesn't get out of the pocket too much. Um, he often will step into pressure because he really tries to do a lot from the pocket, which I like. But sometimes you'd like to see him be a little bit more elusive than he is and try to make some throws on the run or be more of a running threat to the defense. Um, but yeah, with that being said, I have a third round grade on Jake Haener. Kind of reminds me a lot of Matt Corral, who came out of the draft last year. Maybe some Mitch Trubisky too. But those guys I think are both better runners than a Jake Haener. But I think Jake Haener compares a lot throwing wise to Matt Corral last year. So I'm gonna have Jake Haener as my 8th quarterback, third round grade. NFL role, I see him kind of coming into the league, being a backup day one, but I think he has starter potential, and I think he's smart enough with the football. Doesn't put it in harm's way too much, and he's accurate enough and good enough from the pocket to where he could play next year or this coming year in the NFL and maybe be pretty solid from time to time. Obviously, as a rookie, he's gonna have growing pains, but he could start some. He could start some games. I don't think he could be a full-time starter yet, but he's a guy who has the abilities and NFL traits where he could be a starter at some point. Um, so that's why I kind of have him at number 8. Um, but yeah, the size is kind of a negative. He is already 24 years old, and he has suffered ankle injuries back-to-back years, 2021, 2022, but he came back from both of them. So that's a little bit of a negative. The age, injury concern, maybe, and size, but definitely has some NFL caliber traits, so that's why he's at here at number 8. My number 7 quarterback in the 2023 NFL Draft is Aiden OConnell out of Purdue. Aiden OConnell, he has that prototypical quarterback size, 6'3", 210 pounds, and he's kind of that prototypical quarterback, that old school pocket passer with very good pocket presence, nice anticipation. He's a good thrower over the middle of the field. He's pro ready. He's very good and quick with his progressions going through his reads. He has very good short to intermediate accuracy, and he's good at getting the ball out quick to avoid taking hits, getting pressured. He avoids that stuff whenever he gets the ball out quick, which he does very often. So those are some things I really like in Aiden OConnell. And just right now, I'm going to say the reason why he gets the edge over Jake Haener is mainly because that size and just because I think he's better at getting the ball out quick, which is big for me. But with that being said, he doesn't do much outside of structure. Kind of you can tell that he's not a quarterback that's going to come into the NFL into a bad team and be able to make stuff happen outside of structure. So a little scheme reliant probably, and kind of, but every quarterback is going to need a good scheme and O-line and receivers. But I think Aiden OConnell, with his lack of doing stuff outside of the structure on a play-to-play basis, he might need a little bit more help than others in those. He might need a little bit more help than others in those positions. He isn't very mobile. Don't see him doing too much outside of the pocket, and he'll often make a sloppy decision just throwing the football right to a defender, which that kind of comes up a lot that you don't like to see that come up as much as it does. And he doesn't throw downfield enough. He has about an average arm, so it's not amazing, but you'd like to see him throw downfield more than he did this past year at Purdue. But with that being said, I have a round 3 grade on him, so same round grade as Jake Hanel. Again, the size kind of separates them. He is going to be 25 years old as a rookie, which is kind of on the older side. So you can see that these things that I talk about that are good about his game, that could have to do with he was 24 playing against 20 and 21-year-olds. So these things might make him look pro ready. And is he really pro ready? Could be a question. But I still think he's probably more pro ready than most of these quarterbacks in this draft. But pro comp, Trevor Siemian. First off, talking about the high-end Jared Goff comp, whenever you watch Aiden OConnell play, you see so much Jared Goff in his game that I want to comp him to Jared Goff, but then diving deeper into it, Trevor Siemian kind of comes into factor because Trevor Siemian was in a scenario where he was about, I think, 24 years old as a rookie. So similar age to O'Connell, similar size, you could say similar traits too. Well, Goff was the first overall pick, 21 or 22 years old or whatever, coming into LA, a franchise believing in him as the franchise quarterback, picking him first overall, and he was very young compared to a guy like O'Connell. So that's where I see it's hard to see O'Connell becoming a Jared Goff type player or have a Jared Goff type career. But just watching him on tape, you see so much Jared Goff in his game that I had to include that comp. But anyway, O'Connell, I could see him starting right away if needed in the NFL, but he'll likely be a high-end backup, maybe a bridge starting quarterback throughout his career. But again, that's not the worst because with his traits, you could see him as I could see him as a bridge starting quarterback who, with a good cast, could be an average quarterback, maybe get you some wins. So, third round value for me, Aiden O'Connell. On to my number 6 quarterback in the 2023 NFL Draft, I have Will Levis. So there's a lot to talk about here. Will Levis going into this past college football season, going into the 2022 college football season, was talked about as a potential top 5, top 10 pick. The season went on, he didn't produce very well. You could blame it on the Kentucky talent majorly declining from 2021 to 2022. The receiving core was weaker. The O-line was weak. So, yes, I can see that point why his play declined statistically, but just watching the tape, personally, I don't see the top 10 pick at all. And if I'm being honest, I know he's still getting top 10 pick talk, but I don't think Will Levis is going to be a top 10 pick come April 27th. I believe that's draft day. Let me just double check. Yep, draft day is April 27th, by the way. But anyway, I see Will Levis as a round 2 to 3 guy. He has a very powerful arm, which people love in him. He's 6'3", 232 pounds, so big size for a quarterback. Good athlete, tough player, and I think he's solid at reading a defense. But why I have him at the grade I do? I think I take a chance on him in the second or third round because of these traits, because of the size, the arm. Just you can see that you can see his best throws are really good throws, and if he can just become a consistent player, then you have a pretty good quarterback. But I think that's kind of a stretch that he's going to become a Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow, because even him at his best ball, I don't see it to that level at all. I see him being more of a Carson Wentz, Baker Mayfield player, to where whenever he ran a play-action offense, he was actually pretty good. Like, in the play-action offense system around him, he can benefit from it and put together a pretty good ball with his talent. But overall, I see him as a player who has shaky ball placement. He takes way too many sacks. He holds onto the ball way too long. He puts the ball in traffic way too much. Not a good, consistent, accurate thrower over the middle of the field at all. And he has poor pocket awareness. I just see so many holes in his game. And you take into the fact that he is going to be 24 years old as a rookie. I think that at this point, he's 24 years old. He's not 21 anymore. With all these flaws in his game, I think it's hard for me to take him in the first round, and I would not take him in the first round. Second, third round, put him in a good system. He can become a pretty good play action quarterback with upside because of his natural talent. But just straight up as a prospect, I would not take him in the first round. And looking at other quarterbacks in this draft, I do think there are 5 quarterbacks better than Will Levis. So Will Levis is my number 6 quarterback in the 2023 NFL Draft. My number 5 quarterback in the 2023 NFL Draft, this may surprise some of you guys, Clayton Tune out of the University of Houston. Clayton Tune is that guy who, whenever I watched this film, it was like, wow, he's much better than I thought he was. You look at his numbers, though, he has some elite numbers. He was actually the number 1, or tied for the number 1 graded quarterback in the country by Pro Football Focus, 92.0 PFF grade. You look at it, he threw for 40 touchdowns in 13 games, 79.5 adjusted completion percentage, absolutely ridiculously, absurdly, insanely high. Not too bad of a turnover-worthy play percentage at 3.0. Threw for over 1,000 deep yards, rushed for almost 700 yards. So statistically, he was up there with any quarterback in the country. Then you watch his tape. Well, first off, pretty good size, 6'2", 220. That's about standard NFL quarterback size. He has elite accuracy, as his numbers show. Just elite accuracy. He puts the ball wherever he wants it, accurately, with great ball placement. He has nice pocket poise, looks very calm in the pocket, very good stance in the pocket, and he's also a pretty good athlete and runner. As you can see, he had almost 700 rushing yards. He can run the football, and he's a good athlete. He can be elusive and get outside the pocket and make plays. He has a good arm and a good deep ball, as his numbers show. And another thing that impressed me was his ability to throw accurately while being hit under pressure. I like a lot of Clayton Tune's game. Looking at some of the flaws, he doesn't have the best anticipation. He kind of holds the ball a little too long, in my opinion, sometimes. And I'd like to see him throw it away more often than he does. So that's a little bit of a nitpick, but those are some flaws that I see. And I also see kind of a slow processor. Very accurate, good pocket poise. Now he just needs to work on his timing, anticipation, and his ability to process and read an NFL defense. He is 24 years old, so he's on the older side for a prospect. But I have a round 2 grade on him. I would take him in round 2, no doubt in my mind. He can come into the NFL kind of like a Brock Purdy and play good. My pro comp is actually Brock Purdy. I see a little bit of Bailey Zappi, who put up ridiculous college numbers and was drafted in, I believe, the 3rd, maybe 4th round last year in New England. I'm going to double check that real quick. Bailey Zappi was drafted in the 4th round. I think he's a better prospect than Bailey Zappi. I had Bailey Zappi as a 3rd round grade last year. This year I have Clayton Tune as a 2nd round grade. I also see, though, a lot of Andy Dalton in Clayton Tune. And Andy Dalton may not seem like the hottest name, but he was a 2nd round pick himself back in 2010. He put together multiple Pro Bowl seasons, leading the Bengals to the playoffs in the 2010s. And now he just had a pretty good year on the Saints the past year. Now he's looking to be a backup quarterback in Carolina, but still has had a pretty good career. But Brock Purdy's career is just getting started. But I see a lot of Brock Purdy and Andy Dalton in Clayton Tune. Just very impressive film watch for me. So Clayton Tune is my number 5 quarterback in the 2023 NFL Draft. My number 4 quarterback in the 2023 NFL Draft is Dorian Thompson Robinson out of UCLA. This is my ultimate sleeper. It's just that guy that you watch his tape, just look at his whole kind of what he puts together and say, why isn't this guy getting talked about as opposed to a 2nd round pick? I have a round 1 to 2 grade on Dorian Thompson Robinson. I'm just floating between that round 1, round 2 range, late round 1, early round 2. how I view him, fairly good runner. You see 741 rush yards, 13 games, fairly good running quarterback. He goes through his progressions well, though. He's not just a runner. He is a pass-first quarterback who can run. You look at his passing ability, look at the adjusted completion percentage, 77.4%. Fairly accurate. Up there with the Bryce Young, the Clayton Tunes, the CJ Strouds for the most accurate quarterback in this draft. Fairly accurate quarterback. And he goes through his progressions very well, which you like to see. And he's good from the pocket. He moves well in the pocket. He throws the ball good over the middle of the field. Some NFL traits that you like that I'm naming. And he makes big plays under pressure. It's that simple. People blitz him. He can get the ball out, throw it accurately while being hit. He can move with his legs, as good as pretty much almost any other quarterback in this draft, and then make a big-time throw on the run, or he can run for the first down. Fairly just elite skill talent all around. And he has a pretty good arm. I wouldn't say his arm's elite, though, but pretty good arm. But looking at some of the reasons why I'm not a for sure first-round guy on him, and I'm kind of between the first and second rounds, he has a tendency to put the ball in harm's way. You see a high turnover-worthy play percentage, 4.1%. So that's a little bit of a concern. He doesn't throw the ball downfield very good. I mentioned he has a pretty good arm. It isn't elite. And he only had 521 deep yards. And his average depth of target, ADOT, as you see, is 7.0. If you've been looking at that with the other graphics, that's relatively low. So he doesn't push the ball downfield at a high rate. And kind of with his traits, you wish he had that part to his game. Like if he had a Hendon Hooker deep ball or just a very good deep ball somewhere along that lines, he would be a first-round prospect for me. But he doesn't have that, and then you factor that with tendency to put the ball in harm's way. He is good at going through his progressions and usually making the right read. There is times where his vision isn't the best. Well, by that I mean he just doesn't see ball-watching defenders, and he'll put the ball to where he thinks it's an open receiver, or at least that's what I think he's thinking, but then there's a linebacker or a safety standing right there just watching the ball to jump right in front of it and pick it. That part of his game needs to improve, the vision aspect. Another thing is he does hold on to the ball too long, which I'd like to see him just focus on getting rid of the ball quicker than he has been. But what goes along with that is he has the crazy ability to make big plays under pressure by extending the play. So it's kind of like thing that I said with Justin Fields coming out of the draft a few years ago. Justin Fields had a big college problem holding onto the ball too long, but then you also look at the other side of it. He holds onto the ball and then he makes these ridiculous running around the backfield and then making a guy miss and then running for 25 yards or throwing it 25 yards off his back foot on the run. So, well, you have to take into account he does hold on to the ball too long. There's always those splash plays that he makes because he holds onto the ball so long, and sometimes they work out. So, with that being said, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, my comp is RG3, which that isn't a bad comp because coming out of the draft, RG3 was viewed as a very good prospect. He put together a good rookie season. Injuries kind of derailed his career. He was never able to get back to that level of prospect that we thought he was. But I see a lot of Russell Wilson upside in Dorian Thompson-Robinson if he can focus on improving his downfield passing ability. Because if he can improve his downfield passing ability, I do see a lot of Russell Wilson traits in Dorian Thompson-Robinson. But anyway, he's a tough evaluation, but there's just so much to like that I had to give him a round 1 to 2 grade. He just turned on his tape and he just makes some plays. Just play after play, big play after big play with his legs, with his arm. Just wish he would actually make like the deep plays more often. But anyway, good player. I like him a lot, and I think he's going to be a pretty good NFL quarterback. I think he can start day one, and I think he has Pro Bowl upside. Now, will that happen? Probably not. Will he start day one? Probably not. But I think he can eventually become an NFL starting quarterback, and I think he will be eventually. And I think he has Pro Bowl upside with his talent. It's just, does a team believe in him like I believe in him? If they do, then I think that they can get a pretty good quarterback. Now we get into the big top 3 quarterbacks, in my opinion, and in many other people's opinion, going into this 2023 NFL draft. My number 3 quarterback is CJ Stroud. Now, CJ Stroud, there's a lot to like. Don't get me wrong. That's why he's number 3. I have a top 10 grade on him. I just personally don't see the elite traits that will make him an elite NFL quarterback. That's why I don't have a top 5 grade on him. But I think he's a top 10 player in this draft because I think he's a very good player. He has the prototypical 6'3", 214 size, strength you'd like to see in a quarterback, and he has the vision just to put the ball wherever he wants on the field, which is very impressive. He has very good pocket patience. He is probably the best pocket passer in this draft. Although I think Clayton Tune out of Houston is very good in that department, as well as guys like Bryce Young. But I'd have to give CJ Stroud the nod for the best pocket passer in this draft. He has impressive big time throw ability from the pocket. So that's something you really like to see. He's pretty good at progressing to a second read too. I don't see really a problem progressing to a second read. Beyond that, sometimes maybe, but just overall, going from his first to second read, pretty good. He has a very good arm too. Can throw it deep very well. Good throw on run ability. So he has all these high tier NFL traits that can make you a very good NFL quarterback, which I think these make him a pretty safe prospect. Now, there is a chance he goes to a bad O-line, which could happen to any quarterback. He gets hit a lot. His lack of mobility, well, not lack of mobility, but his maybe not amazing elusiveness and being as mobile as some of the other top NFL quarterbacks shows, and that puts some flaws in his game, and then he doesn't become this top 10 player or good quarterback that people expect him to be. That's always a scenario, but again, that's team dependent. That's not CJ Stroud's fault that if he goes to a team with a bad line, it may show some of his flaws. That's why I don't have him number 1 or 2. CJ Stroud's still a very good prospect. Flaws, though, I think he has some lack of anticipation and quickness to make a throw. I would notice on his tape sometimes, well, he's very good at just sitting there in the pocket and throwing the ball accurately. Sometimes you see where he's just staring a guy down for a second or two before he wants to make the throw. Just quickness to recognize somebody's open and anticipate his throw is something that I see as a little bit of flaw in his game. And, well, he is accurate, and I think he can put the ball anywhere he wants. I see some inconsistencies with his ball placement. His adjusted completion percentage is pretty solid at 72.8, but it isn't wowing like some of the other numbers you've seen throughout this video. So I think that kind of shows, to my point, his ball placement can be inconsistent from time to time, which is something that you'd like to see him improve, but he definitely can improve. I've been mentioning most of these quarterbacks are like 23 years old, 24, 25. CJ Stroud is 21 years old. Going to be around the 22 range. I think he might turn 22 around the time the NFL season starts. But anyway, top 10 grade on him. Again, I love a lot of his game. This is why I comp him to Dak Prescott, because Dak has a lot of good NFL traits that has made him a good, sustainable quarterback for a number of years for the Dallas Cowboys, but he just doesn't have those elite tools or traits that put him over the top and take his team over the top and make him an MVP caliber quarterback. I see a lot of the similar things in CJ Stroud. I think a CJ Stroud career year is going to be probably like a 2022 Geno Smith year, where Geno Smith was never really an MVP candidate, but he showed some like MVP moments, and throughout the season, he put together a very good Pro Bowl caliber, top 7-ish quarterback season. I think that's kind of CJ Stroud's ceiling, so that's why I say he has 2022 Geno Smith upside. But overall, I see a lot of Dak Prescott in his game, which is a good thing because Dak is a good quarterback, but I just don't see the elite traits that'll make him a top 5 NFL quarterback. So that is why he is my number 3 quarterback and not my number 2 and number 1. Still love CJ Stroud. That's why I have him in the top 10, because he's a good player. And I think that whoever drafts him is getting a good NFL quarterback. My number 2 quarterback in the 2023 NFL draft is Anthony Richardson out of the University of Florida. Now, Richardson, he's been kind of the talk of the draft season. A lot of boom or bust talk is coming his way, which, well, I can understand that. I respectively disagree. I think that Anthony Richardson actually has a pretty high floor in the NFL because of the athlete he is and because of his rushing ability and because of just the where he's at as a thrower, I think is much better than people think. So looking at his build, he is 6'4", 244 pounds. He runs a 4.43 40-yard dash. That is ridiculous for an NFL quarterback. 6'4", 244 is like big linebacker, maybe DN size. And he runs a 4.43 40-yard dash. That of a receiver. Ridiculous size, ridiculous speed, athleticism. So looking at his traits, elite arm, speed, and size, as I mentioned. Very good runner, but he is not a run first guy. He's a guy who looks to pass, and he's also a very good runner. He is just his overall pocket presence is better than people say. I think he is a good pocket quarterback. What really stands out is his elusiveness and his movement in the pocket to buy time to make a throw. And he also has the ability to get the ball out when under pressure, whether that's running away from pressure, throwing it on the run, which he's very good at, or just standing in the pocket, stepping up, moving through a guy and taking a hit and throwing the ball. Very good at that too. And he's smart with the football. He knows when to throw the football away. He's a good thrower on the run, as I mentioned. The big concern, which I'd be lying if I said wasn't a concern, is the accuracy. 64.1 adjusted completion percentage speaks for itself. He needs to clean up his accuracy. He overthrows the football way too much. But he is still 21 years old, going to be 22 as a rookie. And I think that his accuracy can be fixed. Maybe it's in the footwork a little bit, although I think his footwork is better than people say. Maybe his footwork needs to be cleaned up a little bit and just focus on getting good touch on the ball. He can improve his accuracy. Accuracy is a very hard thing to improve, but I think he can do it because I just trust in the character. I trust in the rest of the talent. And I think even with how his accuracy is now, he can still be a Cam Newton-like quarterback, because Cam Newton was never a very accurate quarterback. And he was still a very good NFL quarterback until he ended up being injured, and he still won an MVP. So I see a lot of Cam Newton in his game, and I also see some Lamar Jackson too in Anthony Richardson's game. So I think he's going to be a very good NFL quarterback. The thing I like about him is I was watching his interview. He was able to admit that he's always been the biggest guy on the field throughout his football career, that he was only a sophomore year at Florida this past year, so he's kind of coming for the draft a little bit early. But redshirt freshman year, I believe it was a redshirt. True freshman year was 2021. Then his first full season as a starter was 2022 as a sophomore, and he admitted that he was learning this year how to manage the game and actually play the quarterback position properly, because he said he's always been the biggest guy on the field. So he's tried to play hero ball so much due to him being the biggest guy on the field that he realized that this year that wasn't working. And you saw after his first big game versus Utah, he kind of slowed down a little bit. And then towards the end of the season, he started to pick it back up. And I think what he says actually shows on the field. You saw him learning to manage the game, throw the ball away. I think he's a very good prospect. Another thing, look at his stats. Nothing pops off the screen, but his deep ball definitely does, and his rushing yards. 1,000 deep yards, 11.5 average depth of target is very high, and 713 rush yards, pretty good too. And just watch him play. Very good runner, underrated thrower, just needs to clean up the accuracy a little bit. Even with the accuracy where it is now, he is still a good NFL quarterback. But where he can be if he cleans up the accuracy is just insane to think about. If he cleans up his accuracy, he could have seasons where he's the best quarterback in the NFL and win multiple MVPs. And he could be up there with like the Allens, the Mahomes, the Burrows of the league. And that's just crazy to think about. So I think because of the crazy high ceiling, and because I think his floor is higher than people expect, and I think even with his accuracy needing to be cleaned up, he's still a good quarterback. He's my number 2 prospect. And it was tempting to have him as my number 1 prospect, but I just love my number 1 so much. I had to keep Anthony Richardson at number 2. So this leads me to my number 1 quarterback in the 2023 NFL Draft, and that is Bryce Young out of the University of Alabama. So first off, the big talk about Bryce Young, and that's kind of bringing him down in some people's eyes, is his size. He is only 5'10" and 204 pounds, which if I had to tell you that didn't scale me a little bit, I would be lying. Because it does scale me a little bit, but not enough to take him out of my number 1 spot. First off, he is super smart. He is a great processor. The smartest quarterback in the draft, the best processor in the draft. It's just so clear that he can go from read 1 to 2 to 3 so fast, unlike no other quarterback in this draft, which I love a lot about him. It reminds me a lot of kind of like Mac Jones coming out, but I don't think it's to the extent of Mac Jones, because Mac Jones was literally like a computer coming out of the draft, just watching him go from read to read so fast. Kind of a lot like Tua, though, where he can read the defense very well, but on top of that, on top of being just a very accurate quarterback, probably the most accurate quarterback in the draft with his amazing ball placement, and being very smart super processor, he also provides some just really elusive plays in and outside the pocket that remind me of a guy like Jalen Hurts a lot. That's why my pro comp is a mixture of Jalen Hurts and Tua Tagovailoa, because of the Tua accuracy and processing ability. And I think it's even better than Tua's, to be honest. Plus the elusiveness that kind of reminds me of a Jalen Hurts. And Jalen Hurts, MVP caliber quarterback, Tua had maybe a Pro Bowl caliber season. And you factor in Mac Jones too, being a Pro Bowl in his rookie year. And then you look at Bryce Young, he's better than all 3 of those guys coming out of the draft. So that's good to see. I'm just naming the past Alabama quarterbacks who have been in the NFL starters. But anyway, back to Bryce Young. Super elusive in and outside the pocket. Very good footwork and mechanics. Just very mechanically sound. Very good footwork. Don't have to worry about any of that stuff. He's a great passer over the middle of the field. Very accurate, on time. He's good at throwing and reading versus zone coverages with his just mind and mechanics and how everything works together. I don't like throwing this out there, but a lot of it from time to time will look very Drew Brees-esque as far as the mechanics, the mind, and the footwork all clicking just so fast and so efficiently in the short to intermediate game that I just can't ignore that from Bryce Young. So that's what makes me just fall in love with Bryce Young. Now, talking about just a few flaws that, well, I think he's a very, very good top 5 prospect, I don't see a generational prospect because the small size affects him only in one main area, and that's seeing downfield when under pressure. If he was in a 3rd and 10 plus, a 3rd and 15-ish situation, and the defense rushes 5 and brings pressure at him, and Alabama doesn't usually have if they don't have a screen option quickly, if they really want to go downfield, Bryce Young will struggle to get to see downfield because he just doesn't have the time with guys coming at him so quick to see downfield and make an accurate throw downfield. He'll usually just lob it up there and it'll be overthrown or way off target in those situations. So that's where the size kind of affects him, not being able to see over the defense that quickly with them all coming at him and throw it deep. So that kind of can be a little bit of a flaw, but what I have to say about that is how often do those situations appeal in the NFL with a quarterback like Bryce Young getting in those 3rd and longs where the offense doesn't scheme a screen option or a check down option for him in those situations, because usually that's what the NFL does, and he has to throw it deep with guys blitzing at him. That's not going to be too much of a situation where it completely hurts his draft stock for me at all. But just another little flaw is I wish he pushed it downfield more than he did at Alabama. 749 deep yards, 10 yards average depth of target. That is good. But when we're talking about the number 1 pick, you'd like to see great in that category, which I didn't quite see. But another point to that is the talent he was working with at Alabama, you have Jahmyr Gibbs, do-it-all running back, very good. But he did not have a first-round player this year, or a second-round player even, on his offensive line or receiving core. Guys are probably going to come up and become that, but not right now, whenever he was there. So that is something that Alabama usually you don't see with them. Every year you see Alabama having first, second round O linemen and receivers pretty much. This year they don't have that. So Bryce Young kind of hasn't had the cast that past Alabama quarterbacks have had, and he's a better prospect than these past Alabama quarterbacks who have actually come out to be pretty good NFL quarterbacks. So that just makes me really buy into the Bryce Young hype. Um, so I love Bryce Young as a prospect. Love the character too. Um, I just love the trust he has in his receivers too. You notice sometimes I said Stroud would maybe not anticipate a throw super easily, and a guy would have to be wide open for him to finally throw it to him. Bryce Young, I see just he has the ultimate trust in his receivers, and he didn't even have the receivers that a guy like CJ Stroud had. So I just love that out of Bryce Young. As far as arm strength, he has a good arm. He doesn't have an elite arm like maybe a Anthony Richardson or even a Will Levis has, but he still has a pretty good arm, and that I think will translate to the NFL level better than a guy like Tua's did. But once you got Tua deep threats, you saw it worked out for him downfield wise. So I think Bryce Young though has a better arm than a guy like Tua Tagovailoa coming out of the draft. So I love Bryce Young a lot. I think he's a starter day one. I think he's going to be a consistent Pro Bowl quarterback. I'm going to make another Drew Brees reference. I think he's obviously more elusive than Drew Brees, but I'm not going to say he's a better passer than Drew Brees because that'd be ridiculous of me, with Drew Brees being a Hall of Fame, borderline top 10 quarterback of all time. Well, future Hall of Fame quarterback because he's recently retired. But anyway, the Drew Brees reference I want to make is how Drew Brees, throughout his time in the NFL, his era, there was Manning, Brady, Rodgers, is kind of like the guys who you knew one of those three was probably going to win MVP every year, or going into every year. Now you kind of have the Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, maybe Herbert, and maybe Lawrence working his way into that tier, to where one of those 3, 4, 5 guys is probably going to win MVP every year. But I think Bryce Young is always going to be just right with those guys. Just maybe not the deep explosiveness or the big flashy arm strength to kind of be with those guys as the MVP front runners going into every season. I think he's going to be kind of in that Drew Brees tier, will very good, very accurate, very smart, consistent. Know what you're getting out of him year to year. He's going to provide you with Pro Bowl play on a year to year basis. I just don't know if he's going to ever. He could win an MVP, get over the top, and I'd probably predict that he's going to win an MVP in his career. Maybe that may be bold or not, but you get what I'm saying. I think he's always going to be that consistent Pro Bowl quarterback who's maybe just not quite that MVP player. Why I don't have him as a generational talent. But I think you're still getting an amazing quarterback. Start day one, be good day one, provide you with Pro Bowl years, year in, year out, and maybe even go have that career year and win an MVP. So that concludes my draft rankings for the 2023, my draft quarterback rankings for the 2023 NFL draft. Again, I really like this draft class. I think that there's a ton of talent, and I think it goes deep even. And this has just been a fun time to watch all these quarterbacks and kind of come up with my own rankings. We'll see how they age out in 3 to 5 years from now, but hopefully they age good. And I'm hoping to get out some more draft content now that it's getting into April, getting into draft season. I need to continue to grind out the draft film so I can get you guys with more draft rankings videos like this with other positions. Be sure to subscribe to Gridiron Talk Zone. Check out my podcast, Gridiron Talk Zone podcast, that I do with a co-host or two. And be sure to check out my Instagram, where I'll keep you updated with new videos and podcasts. Gridiron Talk Zone is my Instagram. And I'm also going to start getting into the TikTok game, Gridiron Talk Zone on TikTok. Check that out too. So, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Leave it a like if you did. And with that being said, I'm out. Have a good one. Peace.